You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
A little pre-show programming meeting today, and one Sam Dykstra seems very thrilled at how much prep I have done for this episode.
I think you've done enough prep. I mean,
enough prep
by
all the prep.
Being a minor league baseball reporter and being around this stuff for going on, 2 months now of the AAA season, I think you've done more prep than you're giving yourself.
You believe in me.
I always believe in you, Tyler, and I have to tell you that every week.
I don't know why, and I think you're mistaken in doing so, but I appreciate the sentiment. And with that, we welcome you into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show from MILB.com. My name is Tyler Vaughn. His name is Sam Dykstra, and we've got a lot for you this week. Coming up in a little bit, we will hear from Benjamin Hill, who is on the road traveling. He was through Texas, visited Hodgetown, otherwise known as Amarillo, Texas, the home of the Amarillo Sod Poodles, also hitting El Paso. We'll talk with Ben about what's going on the road. We'll have 3 strikes for you coming up in a little while. But before we get to all of that, today we are recording this on June 13th, which means it is All-Star season, and voting is here in AAA. The AAA All-Star ballot presented by the Grilling All-Stars, the largest retail program in minor league baseball history. The Grilling All-Stars encompasses 5 prestigious national brands and will be activated in more than 100 minor league baseball markets across the country. The Grilling All-Stars program merges MILB with local retailers and brands associated with a summer grill out, Louisiana hot sauce, love that stuff, Scott Tissue, Scott Towel, Ballpark Buns, and Bush's Beans. And with that, and with no further ado, we're going to dive in. The International League and the Pacific Coast League, the 2 leagues that comprise the AAA All-Star Game, which this year will be hosted in El Paso, Texas, as the Pacific Coast League will play host to the July 10th event. And here's how we're going to do it. We're going to go position by position. Sam has a fantastic tool shed column, which is up on the site right now. You can go check out. You can also go to MILB.com/ballot and cast your votes for the AAA All-Star Game and the representatives that you believe should be included from the IL and the PCL. So we're going to go position by position. Sam's going to give you his thoughts. I'll give you my thoughts, which won't be nearly as smart as Sam's, and we'll roll through. You ready?
You're really going for the hard sell this week. I
always do.
Yes.
I don't listen to my own parts on the show. I just tune in to listen to you. Or sure. Ben or the guest or whoever. I find myself very annoying.
You and my mother both.
Well, let's get started. First base, where we will kick things off. Sam Dykstra, take it away.
Yeah, so at first base, we're going to try to go rapid fire here. I say this every time we do these kind of list things. But
yeah, then we go 48 minutes on this.
Right. This is more a reminder for myself before we get going here. But at first base in the International League, and again, a reminder on this as well, that these are not prospects we're picking. We're just trying to pick the best players.
The best seasons, the most deserving all-stars at this point in the year.
Right. So AAA is always a little funky because you get a lot of guys who sometimes they have major league experience, sometimes they don't. And sometimes they're old, sometimes they're young. It's an interesting mix here, but we're trying to pick the players who have had the best first seasons. And I'm also going to throw in the caveat here real quick that I don't care if a player is up in the majors right now and would be ineligible to actually go to the game in El Paso. If they have had the best first half of the season as of today, June 13th, then I'm going to vote for them, and I want you to vote for them because I want them to get that on their resume that they were a AAA All-Star in 2019.
Keep it in mind, that is not binding. We don't need any ballot tampering. Sam is not compelling you to vote for them. You can vote your conscience.
Yes, lots of other options are available other than my picks. But my picks are the best, dang it. But, yeah, so if I say a player and you say, wait a second, he's up in the majors right now, I'm not going to vote for him. Sure, it's your personal choice. But let the league figure it out later. Let the player himself get voted in, get that on his resume, and then we'll figure it out when it comes to El Paso next month. That being said, first base, International League. Mike Ford is my pick. there for the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders. Ford leads the IL right now with a 1.141 OPS. He's hit 15 homers in 43 games. That was enough to get a cameo with the Yankees at the earlier parts of the season when the Yankees had some real injury troubles and were trying to figure out pieces. And Mike Ford was a hot hitter. He has been a hot hitter throughout the first half. A little bit of a quad A player at times in his career, but right now is proving that he is eligible and certainly qualified enough to go to El Paso next month. In the PCL, I have Kevin Crone, somebody who is actually in the majors right now with the Arizona Diamondbacks, trying to figure out his spot because he is first base only. That being said, we've talked about him here on the podcast before as being one of the best power hitters in all of minor league baseball this year. At the time he got called up, he had 21 home runs in 44 games. His slash line was 339, 437, 800. 800 was the slugging percentage. If that doesn't scream all-star worthy to you, I have many questions that I cannot ask you because this is a podcast and it's usually a one-way conversation. That being said, Tyler, do you have any quibbles with those first base picks?
I have quibbles with both of your picks. No, I think they're both great picks. I think the alternate guys who I may have selected in those leagues, Bobby Bradley in the Cleveland organization, just 23 years old. Last year was up at the AAA level. Didn't really bust out 32 games there. He batted 254 with a 753 OPS. This season, 60 games so far. He's hitting 277, 924 is the OPS. He's got 18 homers. Seems like it's all finally coming together for Bobby Bradley. The other guy, not nearly enough of a sample size this year because he spent about a month in the big leagues, but Ty France of the host El Paso Chihuahuas, we're recording this on Thursday. He had 4 hits last night. That pushed his AAA average to 433 through 97 at-bats. So it's not as though like, oh, well, he's only played a week there. Like Ty France has had a ridiculous showing. It's just been in really limited action compared to a lot of these other guys. So I think 2 good choices, and we'll move on to second base.
Yeah, and one thing we should throw out too, because Ty France is an interesting pick, and I would love to hear how he does in the voting when it's all said and done next week. We are going off the actual ballot. So Ty France has played a lot of positions for El Paso and for San Diego.
He played third and first last night in that game.
Right. So we're not saying he is only a first baseman. We're just going off what he is eligible off the ballot. So if you're sitting at home screaming, and we'll have this discussion later at shortstop in the PCL, if there's a player you say, oh, he's not a shortstop, he's not a third baseman, whatever, we're only going off what he was eligible on the ballot for. So moving over to second base, another person who kind of fits that is Cavan Biggio with the Buffalo Bisons, now with the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously had a good enough first half of the season to make the major leagues. Biggio, when he left for the majors, was hitting .312 with a 448 OBP. I believe that 448 OBP is still best in the IL. The fact that he leads the IL means he still has enough at-bats to qualify. That kind of pushed me over the hump with him. He's got .514 slugging percentage, 6 homers, 5 stolen bases. Just kind of an all-around hitter that he's done really well. I know he has time in the outfield. That's part of the reason why he made the move up to Toronto. But when he got called up, he had the best OBP. That's pretty good for me. And what was a shallow second base spot, although Josh Van Meter is kind of in that discussion. Maybe Tyler will bring him up here in a second. In the PCL, I have Keston Hiura. Keston Hiura, his prospect status is kind of the carrying factor here a little bit. But, again, kind of a shallow spot because he got called up to the Milwaukee Brewers, played 17 games there, probably shouldn't be eligible for this spot anymore. But his AAA success is still good enough. He has 44 games, hit .329, had an OPS above 1,000 at 1.076, 13 homers, 5 stolen bases. We know how gifted a hitter he is. I would have liked to have seen somebody kind of surpass him in the PCL at second base, but given what his numbers are and the fact that he got sent down, even though he was pretty good with the Brewers, those numbers are only going to get better. So Biggio and Hiura are my 2 picks at second base. Tyler, any changes from there?
No, Josh Van Meter was the one that I was going to bring up in the International League, but I think Keston Hiura is kind of right now unquestioned. Isan Diaz maybe is part of the conversation with New Orleans there, but the Hiura situation is so different and so interesting. And yeah, I think we'll leave it at that, or else Brewers fans will start getting out their torches and pitchforks, and kind of understandably. The shortstop position, this one is interesting, like you said, especially on the PCL side. We'll dive into that a little bit, but go ahead with shortstops first from the IL.
Yeah, and the IL, actually, they announced today, Thursday, that Jake Cronenworth is leading among position players. I think that's wholly deserved. Jake Cronenworth, the shortstop for the Durham Bulls, is leading the IL right now with a 350 average. He mixes in a 439 OBP, 521 slugging percentage. He's got 6 homers, 9 stolen bases. Kind of the perfect potential leadoff hitter for the IL side here. That 439 OBP is third right now behind Ford and Biggio in the IL. So he's getting lots of hits. He's getting on base a ton. That's going to work. He's got a little bit of speed there, like I said, with 9 stolen bases. You kind of check him off and you completely forget about it because I don't think there's much debate for that spot. Where there is a debate is at shortstop in the PCL, as I mentioned before. Luis Urias, Padres prospect, Padres number 3 prospect. At home, you're probably sitting there like I was thinking Luis Urias is basically a second baseman first. That happened the second Fernando Tatis Jr. caught fire a couple years ago. Padres knew that Urias was going to feature better at second base. Because Tatis has been up in the majors and injured at times, they've allowed Urias to play shortstop at El Paso, and that's what makes him eligible for this spot. But he's been one of the best hitters in the PCL this season, kind of bar none. Especially given his power jump. This is somebody who we didn't ever expect to hit for much power. He's got 14 homers in 48 games this year. Pairs that with a 1.120 OPS, which is currently 4th in the PCL. I'm giving him the nod over Jorge Mateo, which is kind of unfair. Jorge Mateo has 93 hits this year in the PCL. Nobody else has more than 81. He's got 11 triples, which is the most in the circuit. He's got 14 stolen bases. He's going a long way in rebuilding his status for sure, but I just don't think he's done quite enough to beat Urias. Do you have a problem with that, Tyler, or would you lean Mateo just because of all of the other things he brings to the table besides slugging?
No, I think I would still definitely lean Urias, but Mateo makes a really compelling case. And, if he was the one to get that slot, I don't think you really kick up much of a fuss about it. And again, I mean, he's somewhat similar to Bobby Bradley in the sense that, going up to the AAA level and now this year busting out the way he has, it's even more drastic, I think, for Jorge Mateo. And I remember talking with Ed Sprague, the A's coordinator of instruction in spring training about this. And he basically said, like, we need him to prove to us that he can hit and that he can hit at that level. And got off to a good start in April, and you kind of wondered, like, is this just early season stuff? Is he just going to, take off quickly and then really come back to the pack? And he hasn't. I mean, he's kept himself as a very, very productive offensive player. But I think just the things that Luis Urias has done wire to wire so far through this first half have been really, really impressive, and he would be the one to get my vote. On the third base side, a lot of good contenders over there as well. Maybe not quite as big of the names as some of the other positions, but rounding out the infield spots, Sam, who you got at third base?
Yeah, at third base I have Kean Wong. Again, somebody who's just eligible at third base but has played a ton of positions for Durham. If you read my toolshed column, I start out my selection of Kean Wong by saying free Kean Wong. The guy has been in Durham. I think this is his 3rd season there, and he continues to perform there. He's got a whole litany of honors and awards that he's won. He's won a national championship MVP. He's been a midseason and postseason All-Star. He's been an All-Star game MVP, so this would be him going back to that. He's done about everything you could accomplish at AAA. Still has not cracked the major leagues. Part of that is because Tampa Bay has such a loaded infield, but I hope somebody in the other 29 organizations is paying attention and hopefully gives him a chance at some point. He's still only 24 years old. This is his age 24 season, so he's got a lot of career ahead of him. Anyways, he's hitting 343 this year, which is second best in the IL. 407 OBP, 500 slugging percentage, 19 walks, 43 strikeouts. He's going to be always an average first player in terms of his offensive profile, but this is his best AAA season. If he's been honored in tons of ways in the past, I can't see a way that he shouldn't be honored in the same way this year. Over in the PCL, I have Jacob Wilson of the Fresno Grizzlies. At the time currently, he's the only third baseman or ballot eligible third baseman with an OPS above 1,000, 1.023. There are some other interesting third basemen that are just not on the ballot. So at this point, Wilson's like the only guy I could really see going with. He's got 15 homers in 54 games. basically doing everything with the bat that he could to solidify this spot. I wish somebody else could have leapt over him, especially in a PCL where the offense is always going to be good. And this year when the offense is especially good, 1,000 OPS doesn't jump out the way it used to. But given the other batch of third basemen in this category, I kind of couldn't overlook Jacob Wilson. So he's my pick.
I would agree with both those guys. The thing I think that's really fascinating about the PCL group is how few of those guys have impressive offensive numbers in a season in which everybody, it feels like throughout the PCL, has outlandish offensive numbers. Like the numbers are good for a lot of these guys, but you don't see the 320 to 340 or above averages with the 1,100 OPSs like we're seeing from a lot of guys throughout the PCL. So kind of an interesting group at that third base spot. Again, the AAA All-Star Bout presented by the Grilling All-Stars. Bush's Beans is all about family, friends that feel like family, and a certain secret family recipe. When you enjoy their beans, baked beans, black beans, pinto beans, great northern beans, you get the picture, you can trust that they're the very best. Since getting their start over 100 years ago in Chestnut Hill, Tennessee, Bush's has always maintained that quality is the best policy. Bush's pursues excellence and exceptional taste in their beans, sauces, and everything they do. That's why from mouth-watering baked beans to satisfying bean recipes, you're cooking up the best with Bush's Best and with Bush's Beans. Outfielders, Sam. Well, let's go with the DH spot first. That's a difficult one to nail down. There's only a handful. There's only 7 nominees in the PCL, given kind of how that league slants toward National League affiliates, it feels like. But give me some thoughts on this DH position.
Yeah, DH, I kind of wish the way you could do it is you would just open it up to everybody else. Instead of designating who the DH is, because there are lots of guys that I would have liked to have voted here. We mentioned like the Brian O'Grady's or the Josh Van Meters or something like that guys just get overshadowed in other places but aren't eligible for the designated hitter for whatever reason. That being said, my pick for the IL DH is somebody who has also played first base for the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders, in Ryan McBroom. McBroom is 4th right now in the IL and OPS at 1,000. The other 3 guys ahead of him, O'Grady is one of them, but O'Grady got overshadowed by Mike Ford. DJ Stewart we'll talk about in terms of outfielders. McBroom this year, 322, 391, 609 slugging percentage, 13 homers. Kind of your typical DH stats. That's just what he's going to do. He could be your 5-6 hitter when it comes to the IL lineup. Not that I'm trying to make that lineup myself or have that affect my voting, but he's done everything to kind of place himself right into any AAA lineup at this point in the season. Over in the PCL, again, like you mentioned, kind of slim pickings just because of the nature of the ballot and the way things work out there. But there were some interesting names on there if you've been following the minors for a couple of years. AJ Reed was on there. Tyler O'Neill, I think, was a potential pick at DH. In other years, those would have been easy picks. This year, kind of can't take them, which is too bad. But my pick was Brian Mundell of the Albuquerque Isotopes. Brian Mundell has hit 365 this season, which, again, Tyler mentioned, like, you kind of want somebody who's going to have the attention-grabbing numbers this year in the PCL. He does that. He's currently hitting, that 365 average is 3rd in the PCL. Doesn't have the rest of the DH stats you're looking for. He's only got 5 home runs. But, again, the whole mix, it's 365, 429, 559. His 987 OPS, I think, is the best amongst that DH group. You do the best with what the ballot presents you, and Brian Mundell, I mean, you can't, it's tough to look away from 365 average, so he gets the nod there. That being said, Tyler, do you have any qualms with that?
No, I would have gone with Brian Mundell on the PCL side. I think, and you may have mentioned this, Adam Duvall of Gwinnett, power number and run production-wise, 18 home runs, 47 RBIs. The only one listed among this group of the International League with more on the RBI side is Michael Brousseau from Durham. He's got 55, but after that, it's a pretty decent drop-off from Adam Duvall to anybody else, Travis Tyron being the one exception. So he's put together an impressive year. But again, this is such a strange group on both sides with guys who are at various stages of their career. years, and if there's still prospect status intact, or if these are, kind of guy, AJ Reed fascinates me at this stage, because that's a guy who's got 2 Bauman Home Run Award titles under his belt. Now he's hitting 230 this season at AAA. Guys kind of get brought into this spot of where they are at this stage in their careers, and they're shoehorned into this category, especially on the PCL side, which makes it a little bit weird, but still some very deserving candidates. And let's round out the infield side of position players with the catching spot, which has some really interesting talent. Interesting? How did I just say that? Some really interesting talent. Sam, who you got at catcher?
Yeah, so a catcher, it was kind of interesting going through this, and I had an idea of who I wanted for the IL, but to see him stand out quite this way was really interesting. In the IL, there's only one catcher with more than 12 home runs. It is Eric Haas, who has 17. Eric Haas, always going to be kind of a slugging first catcher. He's been a bit of a quad A player. Would love to get him more of a chance with Cleveland, and their catching situation hasn't quite worked out that way, but he's hit 17 home runs this year. Actually, he has 20 extra base hits, 17 of which are homers, which is kind of nuts, and you wouldn't think would be sustainable, but it has been sustainable through the first half. He's thrown out 37.5% of attempted base stealers, so he's not just doing it on the offensive side. He's got a 963 OPS through 44 games, a 927 OPS through 46 games. That actually changed on him. But so it's a pretty well all-around package for him. Over on the PCL side, I have Austin Nola of Tacoma. If anybody's been following Nola's career, you know him previously as an infielder. They moved him to catcher, I think, in 2017 when he was with the Marlins. He played a couple years at AAA New Orleans, never really cracked it. Now he has a chance to go to his first AAA All-Star game, and I think he's certainly backed that up. At the time I wrote this, he was hitting 336, 426, 536 with 7 homers and 4 stolen bases in 52 games. Those aren't normal numbers for a catcher. You usually think catcher takes it down a little bit of a notch in terms of offensive value, and certainly you wouldn't expect them to get 4 stolen bases. Nola is athletic enough to make that work. He has played a good amount of first base this year, but he's also thrown out 6 of his 14 attempted base stealers, showing off a good arm and good understanding of how the catching position works. So I think that would be really fascinating. After years and years of trying to make it with New Orleans, he finally makes it with Tacoma in a position he's still getting used to. But I do think he's the most qualified PCL catcher, unless, Tyler, do you have somebody else at that spot?
No, not on the PCL side. One guy who stands out to me as being really interesting throughout the season on the International League side is Chance Sisco, the Norfolk Tides, who the power numbers have come along. He's got 10 homers so far this year. He's hitting near 300, and that's a guy, I mean, we know how starved Orioles fans are for good news, good prospect news in recent seasons, and Chance Sisco is a fun talent who is making his way closer and closer to Baltimore. I'm not sure if he would get the nod, but another guy to certainly keep in mind for that spot. The 2019 AAA All-Star ballot presented by the Grilling All-Stars. For more than a century, Kimberly-Clark has transformed ideas into innovative practices. They lead the world in providing essentials for a better life, and their global brands are a trusted part of the lives of nearly 1/4 of the world's population in more than 175 countries. With a focus toward a sustainable future, Scott released green products, which garner recognition and confirmed its place as an industry leader. To the outfield we go, where we get a chance to select 3 players from a lengthy list of candidates. And Sam, International Pacific Coast League, who stands out in the outfield?
Yeah, I feel like the IL was a lot more difficult to choose for this one than the PCL, but we'll start there. DJ Stewart, anybody who listened to the podcast in the past knows that DJ Stewart was my pick for May Player of the Month at any level, in any league, never mind AAA, never mind just the IL. He hit 456, 512, 882 in May, carried that to not only get a promotion to Baltimore, but I think has been the most productive IL outfielder in the first half. My second choice here goes to Travis Demeritte of the Gwinnett Stripers. Anybody who knows Demeritte's history knows that he used to be a second baseman. He used to have some really good power, but a lot of strikeouts to the point where he used to be a ranked prospect, kind of fell out. Now he's been building himself back up. The strikeout rate is the lowest of his career. It's still 25%, but that's as low as it's ever been. He's at the point I wrote the story, he was hitting 284, 370, 574 with 13 homers. So again, the power is still there. It's a little bit more of a hitter-friendly environment in AAA, obviously, this year. But the strengths are still there for him. He's moved to the outfield, seems to do pretty well out there, cutting down the strikeouts. He's my second pick. Third pick was really difficult. I ended up going with Nick Longy of the Louisville Bats. When I was looking at WRC Plus, which is something that 100 is considered average, and it tries to deflate stats or inflate stats depending on the environments you're playing in, and puts everybody on the same scale. Longy was the only one amongst the top 15 outside of Stewart and Demerit in WRC Plus at 132. So he was 32% better than average in the first half. There are some other picks there that could certainly be made, and some quibbles you could have for another outfielder. It might just be a sense of taste, but Nick Longy was my pick there on the strength of his bat. PCL, Yordan Alvarez has to be the first pick. Yordan Alvarez now up with the Astros. We may make this a foul ball real quick just because we talked about him so much during his time at Round Rock later in the show. But he should be the easiest selection on here, I think. He hit 343, 443, 742 in 56 games. He still leads the minors with 23 home runs in that time. He ranked in the top 8 in all 3 slash line categories in the PCL. Should be the easiest pick you have. Number 2, I have Yadiel Hernandez from Fresno. Much more of a veteran, but he ranked second in the PCL with a 365 average and third with a 1.130 OPS while hitting 16 homers in 57 games. Again, just doing everything you want out of a hitter in that spot. Third spot, I have Jonathan Daza out of Albuquerque. Is it Jonathan or Jonathan?
I believe so. This is a conversation actually that popped up recently when he was promoted to Denver, where I obviously watch a lot of Rockies games. I believe that all of these dudes technically come with a J pronunciation from their home country. So it would be Yordan Alvarez and in Jonathan's case, Jonathan Daza, Yadiel Hernandez. But that's one of the very few things that I feel like doesn't cross over at all when we all try to pronounce it here. Like Yasmani Tomas, I think, and somebody can please email or tweet at us and correct this because I'm an idiot who only took Spanish for a year back in middle school and then for some reason decided, I'll take Latin in high school because that makes sense. I think that's Yasmani Tomas in Cuba in his case. That's a thing that I feel like is a conversation we'll have on a wider scale as we get further along. Nowadays they're finally putting the accent marks on the backs of jerseys in the major and minor leagues for the Latin-born players. I think we'll start hammering away at this as well. That was a very long answer to that, but yeah. I've been fascinated by this for the last few weeks.
No, it is a conversation.
But I also think it's cool that your 3 selections from the PCL all start with Y. I think that's very cool.
I did not think about that whatsoever. But
you totally planned it. Yeah. Don't even lie. Your alternate is Yasmani Tomas. Get out of here.
I mean, it very well could be.
The all-Y outfield.
Quickly on Daza, he's second in the PCL right now with 81 hits. He's got a 379 average. Again, that's coming at Albuquerque, and I get that, but still, you can only hit where you play, and he's got an average that's 10 points better than anybody else in the PCL, second being Yadiel Hernandez. The OPS is good at 997, 6 home runs, not quite there, but he's got a lot of doubles with 20. 3 pretty solid picks there, but outfield is so deep, and because you're making 3 selections, you could almost put anybody in these 3 spots outside of a certain outfielder from Syracuse, who I will not name. But so it's pretty deep. Anybody I missed, Tyler, that you other than Yasmani Tomas, who you brought up already?
No, I think you could make an argument for Kyle Tucker. The numbers are not quite as great, but that's a dude, obviously, one of the top-ranked prospects in all baseball. 21 homers, 49 RBIs. We've seen him at AAA before, all that. If you wanted some more prospect flash, Kyle Tucker could be a guy you made an argument for. Tomas is an interesting case because when he came over from Cuba, he got a lot of time early on with the D-backs at the big league level, and kind of similarly to what you were discussing with Travis Demerit, he just struck out so much that we really haven't heard much from him at the big league level as of late. So it's cool to see him having that success down to the AAA level. But I think those are 2 really good groups in the outfield.
Yeah, and Tucker was actually one of my last cuts because the interesting thing about him, you mentioned the power of 21 homers, which is second in the PCL. He's also the only PCL player with at least 14 homers and 14 stolen bases. He's got 14 stolen bases. That's why I use that specific number. But he's doing things he's done forever at pretty much every level, which is a combination of power and speed. Can play multiple outfield spots. I almost think you could plug him in, and that's kind of something to his favor, is that he could play center field in a pinch. We usually pick the best hitters for this, and then you look around and you're like, there are no center fielders, because center field is really hard to get a good fielder and a good hitter. Tucker could do anywhere on the grass, but I just think the three guys I picked were kind of better fits for that, and I think Daza could probably play your center field if you really needed it.
I'm with you.
Yeah. It's an all-star
I'm
game. You know, if somebody can't cover that much ground and can't make the defensive play, that's fine as long as they can hit dingers for 4 or 5 innings.
That's all that matters, especially in El Paso. It's a smaller ballpark. It'll be a lot of fun.
14-13 is how this game is going to end, by the way.
Yeah, it could certainly be one of those games. And we'll move on to our final category in just a moment as we discuss pitchers. But first, we tell you about Ballpark. These days, Ballpark is loading your grill with more than just hot dogs. Their patties highlight an ever-expanding menu of summer flavor. As long as bats are still swinging and grills are still sizzling, Ballpark promises to keep bringing summer to the table. Sam, pitchers, we get starter and reliever selections. These are always kind of tough to pick. Sometimes there's a starter, as I know is the case in the International League, that really separates himself. But as far as a couple of starters on each side and a couple of relief candidates on each side, sometimes these are really difficult to pick. But who you got?
Yeah, one thing I really like about the AAA All-Star ballot is that you get to vote for 2 pitchers. It is not as easy as just taking one and having to shut out a lot of guys. You get to take 2, which still leaves a lot of people on the table, but is interesting. In the IL, I have Mitch Keller of Indianapolis, who, as you know by now, called up to the Pirates to make a start. That's because he leads the IL with a 3.10 ERA. The interesting thing to me, we've talked so much this segment about offense in AAA this year. The fact that the leading IL ERA is 3.10 is fascinating to me. The last time an IL ERA leader finished above 3 was 2005. When Scott Baker had a 3.01. So that just kind of tells you where we are with offense, but Keller does more things than just that ERA. He's also tops in the IL with 74 strikeouts over 58 innings. No matter what, again, if he's with the Pirates for a little bit of time or if he gets sent right back down to Indianapolis, he deserves your vote. At number 2, I have Chris Flexen, which, looking at the voting, how it's worked out so far, I don't think he's even in the top 5 for voting. But the reason I like Flexen, he's third in ERA at 3.59, but he also has the best strikeout rate. He struck out 70 batters in 52 2/3 innings, or that works out to 31.5% of the total batters he faced. What's the best way to eliminate the new AAA ball? It's to get guys not making contact. Flexen has been very good at that this year for AAA Syracuse. Over in the PCL, Zach Gallen by far has been the best AAA pitcher this year. He's got a 1.57 ERA, which is nuts, even in the PCL. Anywhere that would be crazy. He's got a 0.70 whip. He struck out 104. He's averaged 6.5 strikeouts per walks over 86 innings pitched. By the way, that 86 innings pitched is the most in the PCL. So he should be your number 1 pick, bar none. If you find a way to pick anybody else first, I have some really questions for you. We're sticking with New Orleans for the second pick here with Hector Noesi. I don't take it for granted here that I've picked 2 New Orleans guys. New Orleans is a pitcher's park by PCL standards. I get that. Again, I'm only going to reward guys for pitching for where they can. Noesi is right behind Gallen in a lot of stats. He's second in ERA at 2.64. He's second in WHIP at 1.02, and he's third in strikeouts at 76 over 71 2/3 innings. Those strikeouts in particular, again, they take out the environment completely. So Gallen being first in strikeouts, Noesi being third in strikeouts, are both to their favor no matter where they pitch. They could pitch in Albuquerque, and they would still get those strikeout numbers, even if the other things would be off kilter a little bit. So Gallen should be the PCL starting pitcher. I hope he gets a chance with Miami at some point. We saw them bring up Jordan Yamamoto this week, kind of skipping over Gallen. I think that's because Yamamoto is on the 40-man and Gallen is not. That being said, I hope Gallen gets his chance with the Marlins before the AAA All-Star game. If not, he better be the first starting pitcher on the mound there for the PCL side if they want a chance to keep it under double digits, I would say. Tyler, you got anybody else I missed? Specifically for those second spots, I think you could have flipped in somebody there as well.
There is one dude that you actually mentioned in the column, in Odorisamer Despaigne in the Chicago White Sox organization, who has had a really, really good year. I mean, you look at especially Mitch Keller, obviously, and what he brings in terms of the prospect status, and you're not going to ignore him. But Odorisamer Despaigne, 32 years old, he's really resurrected himself this season with combined actually 2 teams between Louisville and Charlotte. He is now in the White Sox organization, but started off in the Reds organization this year. 3-3 with a 3.34 ERA and 12 appearances, 11 of them starts. His numbers have been really good pretty much across the board, a 1.18 whip, but he was not on the ballot. So that's just one guy that, as Sam puts it in the column, pour one out for Odorisamer Despaigne, or write him in. You can do that as well. And in relievers, our final category, Sam, relief pitchers from the International League and the Pacific Coast League.
Yeah, so relievers are kind of fun because it's all about what you value in a reliever. I don't really care so much about saves at this level. We talk to farm directors all the time. We talk to managers, pitching coaches, whatever. They say it's great to have guys who can pitch in those situations in the minors, but usually, there are only 30 closing jobs really in the major leagues. You need relievers who can pitch the 6th, the 7th, or the 8th and 9th. The guys get moved around all the time. So it's not as simple as just clicking the saves button and saying like, oh, who leads the league in saves? We're going to go with them. That being said, in the IL, I have Austin Davis, who if we make 20 innings the cutoff, because we kind of have to at this point in the season, he's the only IL pitcher with an ERA below 1. At the time I wrote this, he had 0.77. He's also struck out 26 batters in 23 and a third innings. That made him get called up to Philly on June 3rd. Also in the IL, I have Andrew Kittredge, who's basically been their version of everyday Eddie Guardado. His 27 appearances are tied for the most in the IL, yet he still has a 1.93 ERA and 0.80 whip. You can see why they want him pitching so much. He struck out 38.7 of the batters he's faced, which is third among 155 qualifiers in the IL. So I have Austin Davis of Lehigh Valley, Andrew Kittredge of Durham in the IL. In the PCL, I have Jay Jackson, who's a 31-year-old reliever, but he's done everything he needs to do to thrive in the PCL, which is strike out a ton of batters, limit walks, and make sure the ball does not leave the yard. He struck out 33, walked only 4 over 22 and a third innings. He hasn't given up a single home run. That helps out to work out to a 1.21 ERA and 0.67 whip, which is going to pop off any page. I also have Jairo Diaz. Diaz has the lowest ERA among PCL pitchers with at least 20 innings pitched at 0.45. He's also got 6 saves and 6 chances. That's just kind of a bonus. Again, I don't count that specifically. But he has a 0.90 whip and 22 strikeouts in 20 frames. Just, again, doing all the things you need to do to stand out as a reliever anywhere, but specifically as a reliever in the PCL. But you could go any which way in this direction or in this specific column. So, Tyler, what do you have, or is there somebody else that sticks out to you?
No, I think those selections are really good. Jairo Diaz, if you don't know his story, and if you have a subscription to The Athletic, the Colorado Rockies beat writer, fantastic guy, Nick Groke, wrote a story back in March about Jairo Diaz, who is currently up at the major league level with the Rockies, and he's got a 1.59 ERA at the major league level in 11 appearances this year. But you look back at his numbers over the last several seasons, and they're kind of perplexing. 2016, he had Tommy John surgery. 2017, he made 22 appearances between the minors and the major leagues. And then 2018 was pretty much gone. He did pitch in 13 games in the minor leagues that year. But the reason for that is Jairo Diaz was married to a young lady named Dubraska. They had a baby girl. And a year and about a month after he had Tommy John surgery in 2016, she called him and informed him that she had stomach cancer, and she passed away. It's a really kind of a gut-wrenching and heartbreaking story through that part. But seeing Jairo Diaz in the way he's come back, it's a pretty incredible road. And there are guys like that. You know, everybody has their story, and people go through adversity, but you see some of these guys, and when you get to moments of recognition like this for all-star games, and you get to appreciate how guys got to these points. Sometimes it's worth it to take the extra minute to learn more about them. And if you get a chance to read Nick Groke's story, it's really incredible stuff. But seeing that on there is just kind of a thing that makes your heart smile a little bit with somebody like Iro Diaz. Man, we made it through. That's the AAA All-Star ballot. Holy smokes. Yeah. We got them all. Again, none of these binding. We don't want to be – this isn't Chicago. We're not influencing your ballot or telling you to vote multiple times. But really, you can vote multiple times and make your voice heard for the AAA All-Star game to be held this season in El Paso. Texas AAA All-Star ballot is presented by the Grilling All-Stars. The original Louisiana brand hot sauce has a long history of bringing quality-aged peppers to food lovers everywhere. Since 1928, their hot sauce has built a reputation for quality and perfection by using only the best, carefully selected aged peppers. The original Louisiana brand hot sauce continues to be made in New Iberia, Louisiana, the home of former White Sox first-rounder, went to LSU, whose name I am now going to completely blank on, but I'll find in a minute. The original Louisiana way is how it is still made there, by the way, where peppers are combined with vinegar and salt and then left to ferment during the aging process. Over the years, their sauce masters have added to their family of sauces by creating a number of flavored hot sauces and wing sauces using other pepper varieties and spices, each with its own flavor profile. While that family has expanded, they've stayed true to their promise to create a perfectly balanced sauce that is not too hot and not too mild.
Jared Mitchell.
Jared Mitchell! I couldn't remember. Thank you, Sam. That would have driven me nuts until I Googled it. Jared Mitchell was actually still in baseball as of wow, he's still playing this year in indie ball. He is in the Atlantic League with the Sugarland Skeeters, now 30 years old. He was a fascinating guy. He was a defensive back, I believe, at LSU, and then was taken by the White Sox in the first round in the 2009 draft. And I saw him playing Winston-Salem in 2011. And an interesting guy, one of those guys, just all of the tools and just never quite put it together as a professional ball player, but still trying to make it happen. He's actually put up some pretty good numbers in indie ball over the last couple of years. Good for him. Yeah, but New Iberia, Louisiana, that sticks out for two things: Louisiana original hot sauce and Jared Mitchell.
I was going to say baseball is very difficult. You can be an incredible athlete like Jared Mitchell and have a difficult time hitting a baseball the right way 30% of the time.
It is a strange sport that draws.
I'm glad he's found, he's still plugging away with the Sugarland Skiers. Hopefully, maybe he does well enough this year to get another chance. We've seen that happen a couple times. We saw that happen with Trayvon Robinson, a podcast guest a couple weeks ago. So, but that's really funny. I have not thought about Jared Mitchell in a long time. So it's good to know he's still out there.
And if you want to give his hometown a little bit of a bump, go get some original Louisiana brand hot sauce. It's good stuff. And that's going to do it for our AAA All-Star Ballot segment presented by the Grilling All-Stars. Coming up, we're headed to Amarillo to talk with Benjamin Hill on the road on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. For the first time in the history of this podcast and in the history of the city of Amarillo, we go to the city of Amarillo for a podcast interview. It's where we find Benjamin Hill. You're making podcasting history today, Ben.
I am. This might be, for all we know, this is the first podcast interview of any kind ever done in Amarillo.
Ever in Amarillo.
Ever. I mean, I cannot deny or confirm. Actually, I can deny because I saw a guy yesterday doing a podcast interview for his Amarillo-based podcast. So strike this from the record.
Never mind. God, it was exciting for a second. Well, tell us about Hodgetown. This is the newest addition to the minor league baseball landscape, or one of them for 2019. But in effect is kind of its own animal. It's a franchise in a city that did not have affiliated baseball for a long time. It seems to be a burgeoning big-time success story. The traffic that has gone into downtown Amarillo, the businesses that are starting to pop up around there are the ones that already were there that are experiencing this renaissance now of the ballpark, of Hodgetown, and the whole atmosphere around it. Amarillo seems like it is what every minor league market really wants to be in its very earliest stages. What are your initial impressions so far?
I would definitely say my initial impressions are in line with that. Obviously, it's, anytime you're building a stadium and starting a franchise, obviously true success is measured in long-term success. But I really think the benchmarks they're on the right track and they're hitting the right benchmarks. And of course, anytime a new ballpark opens, you're going to see increased fan excitement. But the fans in Amarillo, I was there last night on a Wednesday, and there was probably 6,500 people, lined out the door in the team store, just like the entire game. People all over town wearing Sod Poodles hats. I think this community has really embraced the team. Talking to Sam Levitt, the announcer, the broadcaster for the team, he has people who are just, DMing him and hitting him up on Twitter about how can I listen to your broadcast in the game? I mean, when I go to the game, how can I listen to your broadcast? That level of fandom, which we, obviously don't see in minor league baseball very often. The crowd is into it and focused, and there's just a real energy for the Sod Poodles around here, and it seems very legitimate. And downtown where this ballpark is, there's old warehouses surrounding it, and and the real estate value of these old buildings is going through the roof. The businesses that are around it already, are doing, quite a bit better. A lot of them. So it's always, building a new stadium, especially if any sort of public money is involved. Obviously, there's a lot to consider, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We're still in the early stages in Amarillo, but it looks like this is going to be one of those examples of this truly does spark, a lot of excitement in the community and sparks a lot of development in the downtown area, and really gives a city like Amarillo, which multiple people have already told me is like, kind of a big small town, gives them something at a caliber of entertainment that they truly have not had in their lifetimes, even including the last time there was minor league baseball in the town 30 years ago, which I think was just a different era of minor league baseball history, the Gold Sox. So definitely exciting stuff here in Amarillo, and it's really been cool to be here and catch some of that energy.
And one of the things you can now report on being on the ground like that is the Sod Poodles were one of the most discussed team names of the offseason. Now that you've seen it in Hodgetown, which is in all caps, I don't know if that's coming across by the sound of my voice. It is Hodgetown, all caps. What is the local reaction been to the Sod Poodle? What has been the embrace of the Sod Poodle? I know you shared on social media you saw an actual Sod Poodle, so they exist in town. But what is the reaction been to that part of the new identity?
Yeah, well, I think big picture, we saw the same thing happen in Amarillo that we've seen, that anyone who observes minor league baseball, from a big picture has seen again and again. There's a lot of skepticism greeting that name at first. And then once you see the logo, once you see how it is incorporated in the overall experience, then it's totally embraced. And right now we're in the 100% embracing portion of the Sod Poodles experience. And, one of the criticisms they got for sure when they announced the Sod Poodles name is people saying, I grew up in Amarillo and I never heard of this. I've never heard that a Sod Poodle is a prairie dog. And, so they took a little license with that. Not to say that the slang term didn't exist, but it's not like it was a super prevalent slang term. But it sure is prevalent now. And as I said, the amount of people wearing the merchandise and really embracing it, and the fact that, yes, there are Sod Poodles, prairie dogs in this town, as would befit a Texas Panhandle town, part of a larger area with a lot of open space. I was driving around with some Sod Poodle front office staffers today, Tess and Sam, and Sam, the broadcaster, he had never seen a Sod Poodle, even though he was the broadcaster for the Sod Poodle. So I was able to capture that historic moment. And we saw these Sod Poodles in a vacant lot between two hotels. So, they were kind of urban Sod Poodles, a little grittier and a little more rugged than perhaps the ones on the plains. But it's fascinating.
Like
and I was learning.
And had tattoos.
Yeah, they did. They were throwing little, like airplane-sized liquor bottles out of their burrows. And
hey, don't
like
come around here.
Yeah, but I was learning about them, and there was like perched at various points throughout this Sod Poodle, prairie dog colony. There would be one standing on top of the hill, just barking. And I was told, those are the sentinels. So in the prairie dog colony, they have different roles, and the sentinels look out for danger and warn the others. And then I started to feel guilty that they thought we were dangerous. But, it's so cool. And they have apparently a really developed language, and they're able to communicate really nuanced things to each other through the way they talk and bark and squeak all over. There is in the area, I forget his name, Hoogland or something like that. I'm going to look into it. But he spent 6 months of every year for the last 45 years researching prairie dogs. And the Sod Poodles hired him, or not hired him, but kind of consulted with him to learn about the prairie dogs. And they're really a fascinating species. And then you see it incorporated, into the ballpark experience. Like the concourse level suites are called the coterie suites because a pack of or a group of prairie dogs is called a coterie. Coterie, and the team's newsletter is the Sentinel, because of the aforementioned member of the prairie dog group that looks out for danger. So there's a lot to learn about prairie dogs, is what I'm learning. I know a little bit, but I'm only sure of how little I know.
The real question is, did the guy who had spent 6 months out of every year researching prairie dogs, had he heard the name Sod Poodles before?
He had, and I think he provided the team with examples throughout history in which it had been used. I think when the team in the early days was looking for a little historical justification to be like, hey, we didn't make this up totally out of thin air, kind of thing.
Okay. Makes sense.
So, yeah, he was aware. The foremost prairie dog expert in the world was aware, but I don't think your average Amarilloian, however you say it, I don't think the average person from the city was necessarily aware. But, hey, they've always been aware of prairie dogs, and this is just another way to say prairie dogs.
You got to give Randy O's credit, because it's not the first time we've heard that. I know with yard goats, there were interviews the Hartford Courant did with people who worked in the railroad industry that were like, yeah, I've never heard that term before. But they found it, and it was an old-fashioned term that had been thrown around, and Sod Poodles is an animal version of that. And what about Hodgetown? What's the origin? I would assume Podge, does that have something to do also with these prairie dogs? Like that's where they hang out, right? Those are the little hubs.
Tyler, I really like the way you think, and I would love to verify that it's Hodgetown, because a prairie dog community is called the Hodge.
Dang it,
and they all gather in the Hodge. But that is I believe his name is Jerry Hodge. Is a business leader in the community. I'm sorry to burst your bubble there, but he's a business leader in the community, and he was an early proponent of bringing, because this has been like a decade-long process when the conversations first started. He's been an early proponent of bringing the team back, an investor in trying to secure bringing the team there, leader in the business community. And I'm not sure exactly how the naming rights were negotiated with all that, but this is Hodgetown in honor of a local resident who had the vision to bring minor league baseball affiliated, minor league baseball team after a 30-year absence back to Amarillo.
Well, nevertheless.
Nevertheless.
And
I
Ben,
liked it too.
You've got 2 more stops left on this trip, right? You're going to be going to El Paso and Albuquerque, correct?
Yeah, I was spent a night in Hodgetown Wednesday night, and I'll be there Thursday tonight as I'm talking to you guys, and tomorrow night, and then Saturday, Sunday with the Albuquerque Isotopes, and Monday, Tuesday with the El Paso Chihuahuas. Although on Tuesday they will not be the Chihuahuas, they will be playing a Copa game, and they will be the El Paso Margaritas in like day-glow lime margarita uniforms.
They claim to be the originating spot of the margarita as we know it today, El Paso, correct? That's the tie-in there?
That's a justification, and you can certainly find historical items that suggest that might be the case. But
I feel like that's one of those things, like a million places claim to have invented the cheeseburger. Like there's a place 10 minutes from where I sit right now that actually filed the first patent on the cheeseburger in Denver, but there's a bajillion places that claim that. Like I feel like margaritas is probably similar to that.
I think so, and when I saw that Copa identity, I became curious. I was like, let me look this up. And there were some stories, and there was a story about a guy who claimed to and was certainly an early adapter if he didn't. Or maybe, like a lot of things, people have good ideas independently of one another, and you don't really know where it started first. So, I love the word apocryphal. It might be apocryphal, whether or not it started in El Paso, but hey, they're going with it, and they certainly have enough of a margarita history to justify playing as the Margaritas. Why not?
Albuquerque, a spot that you have been a handful of times. I remember you wrote a fantastic piece several years ago about the collection of Simpson statues that they have there. And there was, back when Vine was a thing, one of my favorite Ben's Biz Vines was asking where Maggie was, because Maggie's the only statue that's missing from the collection in Albuquerque. But you get to visit Isotopes Park again.
Yeah, that was 2014 when I was there, and I did the Simpsons stuff, and that is a really interesting story. Of course, the Isotopes name is a Simpsons reference. Springfield Isotopes on The Simpsons, and there's an episode where the Springfield team is going to move to Albuquerque. And there are all these Simpsons statues on the concourse that were procured at a Los Angeles junk shop and driven to Albuquerque and implanted on the concourse. There's really great Simpsons history there. I wish I could kind of go back and write more about the Simpsons because it's the thing I want to write about, but I think I probably exhausted that last time. But it's been 5 years, and I'm really looking forward to going back. Last time I was there, it was like kind of cold and windy Monday or Tuesday. This time it'll be a Saturday and Sunday in June, so expecting some good energy there. I'll be there for Father's Day. Got some good leads on some potential story angles I can hit up. Of course, have the designated eater ready to go, and so definitely looking forward to the 2 nights there, Saturday and Sunday.
And Ben, you also had a story while we were talking about kind of the Southwest and Texas, although Albuquerque's not in Texas, obviously, but you had a story this week about Corpus Christi and one of their promotions, which includes no phones, which is a heck of a thing to say in 2019. How are they trying to make that work, and what are their kind of aims for that type of promotion?
Yeah, this is a story I wrote just before I left on this road trip, and it appeared on the site on MILB.com today, Thursday, as we're speaking. And I pursued this story because I personally love this. I'm talking on my cell phone right now. When I'm at the ballpark in, quote unquote, Ben's Biz mode, I need my phone. I'm not trying to act above and beyond or, like I'm some old fashioned person or, some elitist who thinks like, phone, electronic phone usage is cell phones are beneath me or anything like that. But I do believe as a society that cell phone, that we have not really established basic etiquette that we should all follow. It's all happened so quickly, so fast. So whether it's a baseball game, sometimes people text during movies, which drives me up the wall. Concerts, instead of experiencing a live thing, you're actually, filming it and looking through it on your screen. Blah, blah, blah. So I have some personal issues with how rampant it becomes. Or when you're at dinner and no one's talking, they're just all on their phone at a restaurant. It drives me crazy. Anyway, I'm already on a tangent. So when I saw that the Hooks were doing this, having the first no phone game in minor league baseball, I was all about promoting it. A summer collegiate team, Kalamazoo Growlers, did it earlier this month. And Corpus Christi, first in minor league baseball, the Hooks, they're following suit. This game is actually going to take place next Thursday on the 20th. And what they're doing is when fans get to the park, they partnered with this company called Yonder, Yondr, and they specialize in these sort of things. They've worked with, big concerts, Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, Dave Chappelle Netflix shows. They have experience, running no-phone events. So basically when you get to the game, this Corpus Christi game, you will be given a pouch, a locking pouch to put your phone in, and you get to keep it. They're not going to take your phone away from you, but you're asked to keep your phone in this pouch for the entirety of the game. They have some phone zones throughout the ballpark. If you have to use your phone, they understand. Of course, maybe you got a babysitter or maybe you have a situation to monitor. I understand you might need your phone, but the whole purpose is to say, let's just enjoy this game together, this 3-hour game. And I was talking to Dan Reiner, Hook's front office staff member, is one of the brains behind this promotion. And, he said, look, if you can go to see Avengers and it's a 3-hour movie and you don't look at your phone, which of course you shouldn't, how about you apply that to a baseball game and really take in like the natural beauty of the surroundings, the field itself. Also, Corpus Christi is a beautiful ballpark. You got the Harbor Bridge over the Bay Waters. You got the USS Lexington, an old military ship that's now a museum in view. Really striking setting. And he's saying, like, why don't we just take in the surroundings and not spend the game being distracted and looking on our phones? And it's part of the Hooks Conservation Weekend, where they're celebrating the beauty of the local community, the beaches. They're wearing special uniforms with a speckled trout, which is a popular game fish and fish in the area. So while no phones isn't necessarily about conservation, it is sparking a conversation about enjoying the natural beauty of the area and putting down your phone. And I will continue to promote these ideas because I do believe any excuse we can have to not use our phones is really good for our mental health and for our collective well-being as a society.
Definitely agree with that. That story is up on the site right now at MILB.com. And Benjamin Hill, you can catch on the tweets at Ben's Biz, and check out the site, MILB.com/Ben's Biz. You can get all the information on where Ben will be coming up for the rest of these trips and beyond. And we'll see you back in New York next week then. I won't, but Sam will.
Yeah, Sam will. I'll be back, flying back on Wednesday. Should be back in the office on Thursday. Normal life resumes, but right now is not normal. I'm in a hotel lobby in like a little glass cage, like a luxury prison cell in the lobby. It's a very weird situation. I'm not sure if I can describe it, but I'm going to go down to the Toot and Totem right now and get a snack. It's Amarillo's premier convenience store, Toot and Totem, although I'm told Pack-a-Sack is better. So, I like this. I'm in a totally foreign environment. Maybe not technically foreign, but I'm going to embrace the weirdness and go get something at Toot and Totem. And it's been great talking to you guys.
Make sure you don't walk by any of the hooligan Sod Poodles, the street Sod Poodles. Street Poodles.
Yeah, I'll cross the street. I'm not messing with their sentinels.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, guys.
This might be the first time ever that we have moved Three Strikes all the way to the back segment of the show. We've bumped it back a segment, but we're in the final segment of the show before the show for this week, and we have arrived at Three Strikes. It's
Consider like the first two segments.
Dogs walking men, and cats and mice living together. I don't know.
I guess that's kind of like, remember how Nomar used to tap everything, fix the gloves, put everything, and now we have Three Strikes. So that's essentially what the ballot and the Ben segment is just us getting fully ready for the at bat that presents Three Strikes.
Right.
Which we are going to make streamlined this week because it is the last.
Yeah.
We've gone through a lot today, and we're grateful if you have made it this far. We'll try to make sure that you make it through this last segment in one piece.
Been a jam-packed show. Let's get started. Short season ball is nearly underway. All the short season circuits. One has been underway for a little while. That's the Dominican Summer League, but the Gulf Coast League and the Arizona Leagues at the lowest levels, stateside and rookie ball, Class A short season and rookie ball will get going elsewhere around the country in the Appalachian League, the New York Penn League, the Northwest League, the Pioneer League. Not missing anybody, right?
Nope, that's it.
And with that, Sam, some early storylines, some things to watch out for in a preview of short season ball.
Yeah, so I'll give you one player to watch. The Tool Shed on Friday is going to be about this, so check that out to find out more players to watch and also one team to watch here real quick. As far as a player to watch, I'm going to be keeping my eye on Christian Robinson. I did a story on him in the offseason because he's fascinating. He kind of represents this wave of Bahamian talent that's coming through right now, and how it's really interesting that this one island that we don't really know for much outside of maybe track athletes is really coming through with a lot of baseball prospects right now. He's just as much a part of that as some of the other guys we know, Jazz Chisholm being one of them. Sticking in that same D-backs organization, Christian Robinson will start out the year at Class A short season in Hillsborough. Really like what he brings from the plate from the right side. He's got a chance to have plus power. He's got good speed. He can play all three outfield spots. The only question with him right now is the hit tool and how is that going to translate. But he measures in at 6'3", 190 pounds. The crux of my story was that he actually performed in a home run derby in the Bahamas, that there were some more notable prospects that were there as well. And he stood out then, and that was when he was young. He's only just turned 18 in December. So his body is still maturing. His game is still maturing. He hit 279 with a 363 OBP and a 428 slugging percentage last year. That slugging percentage doesn't stand out quite yet. It's going to soon, and I think that's going to happen very quickly here in the Northwest League. Going to be fascinating to see how he develops. Would not be surprised at all if he ends the season as a top 100 prospect, again, as an age 18 player who has not yet reached full season ball. This is his real chance to kind of break out in that way. In terms of a team to watch, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on the Mahoning Valley Scrappers in the Indian system. They will have three of the Indians' top 9 prospects in outfielder George Valera, shortstop Brian Rocchio, and right-hander Ethan Hankins. Rocchio may be my favorite of the bunch. He has the chance to be above average with the bat. He's got really good speed, and he's good enough with a glove that he probably will stick at shortstop. That's a package of tools we always like to see. Valera is actually the higher-ranked prospect of those three, but Ethan Hankins was a prominent prospect they picked up last year. They took him with the 35th overall pick. They knew he was going to be a long-term project, but he's 6'6". He can throw in the mid to upper 90s with his fastball, and his changeup is actually really good, which is not something you normally see out of a prep pitcher like himself. The breaking stuff still has a ways to go, and again, with that type of size and that type of velocity, the command and control needs to be refined, but he'll get a chance to do that here with Mahoning Valley. they're not going to let him just skip straight to full season ball like some of the other high picks coming out of last year's draft. So this will be the first chance we get to see Hankins. Those three could be kind of the next big three prospects if all comes together like it could in Mahoning Valley. We could be talking about them as the top three prospects and in the Indian system in a couple of years after some graduations and maybe after Nolan Jones isn't around anymore. And if Tristan McKenzie can get healthy and eventually work his way to Cleveland. But the foundation is here with these three in that Cleveland pipeline. They'll all be together at Mahoning Valley. And as I've kind of looked at how some of these short season rosters are being put together, I would say that's the stick out one so far. We'll be talking about short season rosters obviously throughout the summer, especially as some of these draft picks get assigned to some of these places, whether they're going to the GCL, the AZL, maybe somebody like Adley Rushman could be playing at Class A short season Aberdeen. Maybe he won't be there very long. Maybe they skip him straight to Class A. Delmarva will be keeping an eye on it. But not only is it just 2019 picks that fill up these rosters, it's guys who have been plying their trade all spring long at extended spring training and now get to play on a field that matters, and that's going to be fascinating to see what they can do once they're finally away from the complexes.
Strike two, there are some new futures game rules that were just announced for the 2019 showcase event and MLB All-Star Week festivities. No longer the United States versus the world. It'll go back to an American League versus National League format for prospects, which is pretty cool. Some other stuff, though, it's going to be shortened to a 7-inning game for the first time since its debut season. Sam, some of the new parameters for this, some interesting stuff that comes out for the Futures game this year.
Yeah, so you already mentioned the two big ones, but it's also going to be moved back. So adjust your schedules, I guess, as it were. The game will be played on July 7th, but it's going to be starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. Normally it's been an afternoon game, and then they play the celebrity softball game afterwards, which is always funny to see because the celebrity softball game is usually taped. So if you're at that, you're watching a game that people aren't going to watch till later anyway. But that's not going to affect batting practice. Batting practice is one of the most fun events of the season. It's a chance for a lot of these guys to show off the type of power that they have in kind of short spurts. And a lot of times it's talked about for a long time afterwards. Eloy Jimenez had one of those. Joey Gallo had one of those when he was in the Futures game. So that's going to be weird a little bit. But I do enjoy the fact that there are going to be no night games in Major League Baseball that night. A lot of teams getting prepared for the All-Star break. They don't want to hang around for that long. So the Futures game, more eyes can be on it. I think that's helpful. That being said, the fact that they're shortening it to 7 innings is disappointing. I think a lot of this is coming from pressure from organizations who don't want their pitchers potentially going, in the later innings to shorten the game. Also, it works for position players. You get your position players fewer at-bats. That's good because it limits injuries. That's good for teams. I'm not saying that's good for the event. I think 9 innings worked fine. Nobody ever complained. A game never ended in a tie. This is not trying to limit it that way. I would have said strictly limit it to 9 innings. If it ends in 9 innings in a tie, nobody cares about the result anyways. Whatever. Especially as you switch it to ALNL. Nobody has bragging rights in that system anyway. Make it a hard cap. If it needs to end in a tie, it needs to end in a tie. But if cutting it to 7 innings means we only get to see one Wander Franco at bat, that's going to be disappointing. Especially for a Rays prospect who doesn't get put on the national spotlight that much, even though he'll be the number 1 overall prospect in the game pretty soon. We should be getting to see as much of these guys as we can. We should be getting to see these pitchers as long as we can. There's rarely a time where a pitcher goes more than 1 inning. I know Brent Honeywell did that a couple of years ago. But this game is set up so guys get limited exposure anyways. To limit that even more is not helping the event, I don't think. I can't even remember a time a players got injured and had to be taken out of a game like this. It's so limited. Limiting it more is not helping, even if they think it is. But the switch to ALNL, I'll touch on that very quickly. I think that's a great move. Just because in the past, diversity is something we should always promote, and that's great. And seeing a world roster that has players from Canada and players from South Africa and players from the Bahamas or what have you, along with the Dominicans, the Venezuelans, the Cubans, the Puerto Ricans, is great. That being said, I think at times when you have like a South African reliever, as cool as it is to see South Africa on the roster, that's taking away from a prospect who is actually much better than that prospect. ALNL, that eliminates the need to have more countries. We can just have the best prospects on the field, and I think that's going to make for much better rosters, much more interesting rosters. It's going to take away a couple storylines, and as a writer, I should be rooting against that. Like a Lithuanian prospect, Dovydas Neverauskas, getting participate in a future game is cool. But if it means we're going to see more guys who can throw 100 miles an hour in this game, I think that's better. It's going to be a little bit more interesting to see how rosters kind of shake out. But again, having dugouts that are mixed with Americans and Dominicans and Cubans and all that, that promotes diversity in itself more than just having one roster that is just filled with world players.
And it's more representative of what actual teams and clubhouses are like.
Right, and you're going to get more mixing and more brotherhood, I guess, out of that, and I think that's certainly better for the game and where the game should be heading. I think it's kind of a mixed bag when it all comes down to it as to what the futures game will be this year, but we won't know until July 7th when the game actually happens how it will play out. I just wish it would have been a normal 9-inning game. I think that's my biggest qualm.
And strike three this week, the Oakland Athletics welcome back into the fold not one, but their top two pitching prospects this week, as both left-hander Jesus Luzardo and fellow lefty A.J. Puck made their season debuts for the Class A Advanced Stockton Ports. You kind of expect to have one of these nights a year, maybe if you're a minor league affiliate with, this is an injured top prospect who's coming back through on his way up to the upper minors or to the major leagues, and Stockton got both of those guys on the same night, which was kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, that definitely was crazy. And Tyler, you actually covered that for us, so you can say a little bit more about it than I can. But I think the beginning of the year, the A's had hopes of both being in the rotation at some point this year. Luzardo especially, he started out the year in the discussion to open up in Oakland, and then had his own injury problems, Puck coming off Tommy John surgery. That was more a goal for maybe the second half. Sounds like their stuff was really good, but what were you able to gather in writing the story for that?
Yeah, and what's kind of interesting about the Luzardo conversation for this year is that was the Puck conversation last year. Pretty much everybody expected A.J. Puck to, if not break camp with the A's, be up in Oakland in pretty short order last year, and then he had Tommy John surgery in April of 2018 and didn't make it back. But I talked with Stockton pitching coach Chris Smith after the game, and pretty much as soon as we got on the phone, he was like, probably won't be that long of an interview. They're both pretty good. And, it just seemed like it was, I think, as much letting the guys get out there and just get back into the flow of competitive games as it was, let's evaluate where they are, stuff-wise and mechanic-wise and all that type of stuff that you would ordinarily do with a pitcher. A.J. Puck, according to Zach Bayruti, the radio voice of the Stockton Ports, he was sitting 98-99 with a fastball in the first inning, and goes out and over a couple innings only gives up a solo homer to Elliot Ramos, who is the second-ranked prospect in the San Francisco Giants organization, but struck out 4. Stuff seemed to be really good. The energy was really good from both of those guys. It seems like they've been obviously chomping at the bit since they got to Stockton, which was a couple days before they actually got out there on the mound. But really, in Puck's case, it's been a year plus, and in the case of Jesus Luzardo, it's been since March. He was shut down with a shoulder strain. These are two guys that the A's have big plans for going forward, getting them to the major leagues. The interesting thing is going to be, and I asked Chris Smith about this, what the plan is going forward. And he said, they haven't really relayed that yet. It's going to come from the development side and the medical side. There was a report, the San Francisco Chronicle said more than likely A.J. Puck is going to be used in pretty much a relief capacity this season to manage his innings workload, especially coming back from Tommy John surgery, but that he could factor in that role for the A's toward the end of the year. Jesus Luzardo coming back from the shoulder strain, if he's 100% and ready to go, then I would think it's going to be, turn him loose and let's see if this guy can graduate, make it up to the AAA level like he did last year, where he struggled at the end of the season. And if he can accomplish that, maybe see him in Oakland before too long. But pretty exciting stuff for not only the Stockton Ports, but obviously for the Oakland A's and for A's fans. The interesting thing Puck goes out and throws 2 innings, gives up the 1 run on the solo homer. Jesus Luzardo went 3 innings. He did not allow a run. They each threw 33 pitches. Puck threw 22 strikes, and Luzardo threw 24 over his 3 innings. So it seems like pretty positive stuff for both of those guys, and just good to see them both back out there, especially in the case of AJ Puck. You see a guy come back from Tommy John surgery, and we've discussed multiple times on the show that nowadays you just kind of think of it as, Tommy John, he'll be back in a year. Tommy John rehab is no joke, and when you see a guy come back from that, regardless of the situation, you're pretty thrilled for him. So congratulations to both of those guys for getting back on the field. And if you are in a AA Texas League or a AAA Pacific Coast League market, you'll probably be seeing them before too long as they continue making the climb back in the Oakland organization. And our final topic of discussion this week, Jordan Alvarez, the Houston Astros product who blasted home runs all over the Pacific Coast League while he was still in AAA, now just doing it at the Major League level. And that's a foul ball for this week's episode.
Yeah, just real quick, Jordan Alvarez we mentioned as being a AAA All-Star pick because of his plus power and what he's shown this year at AAA Round Rock. They give him the call. He made his debut on June 9th, proceeded to homer in each of his first 2 games, showing power to all fields. He is only 2 for 9, so his first 2 hits are home runs, which is no surprising if you've been following Round Rock all year. But he's also shown a really good approach at the plate. He walked 3 times in a 14-inning game on Wednesday. He's played DH in all 3 games so far, so all this talk about, is he a first baseman, is he a left fielder? Oh, we like his improvement in the outfield. Oh, he's probably going to play first base eventually. We always agree that his best spot is probably a DH anyways. You put that bat in the lineup and it's going to figure itself out. And the fact that the Astros are finally doing that is really fascinating. Hopefully he sticks there all year. His bat is good enough. He has nothing else to prove at AAA. And if they can give him that DH spot, that'll kind of figure itself out, I think. But the fact that Jordan Alvarez is showing the same power he showed at AAA already in the majors is really fun and kind of confirms after we saw Vlad Jr. get off to a slow start and some other rookies get off to slower starts than we would have liked in the major leagues, to see Alvarez be exactly who we thought we were in the majors so far has been really fun to see, and hopefully that continues going forward as he continues to carve out a role for himself in Houston.
And that will do it for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. Big thanks again to Benjamin Hill for joining us from Amarillo. And you can check out his stories on the site. You can check out the Tool Shed columns up on the site right now as well. And he's Sam Dykstra. I'm Tyler Mon. We'll talk to you next week.